You have me on the mute.
Thank you, Tom. Elaine Didier for our inspiration, please.
Thank you. Today's inspiration is in memory and in honor of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I'm going to be reading selections from a poem by Maya Angelou titled "When Great Trees Fall." When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes, briefly, see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. When great souls die, after a period, peace blooms slowly and always irregularly. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed.
Elaine, that was beautiful. Thank you. And now we are also celebrating another good friend today, our Rob Northrup Humanitarian Award. And here with some music, Don Duquette is going to give us a little bit of an intro before this music. That was beautiful.
Well, thank you, President Joanne, and hello, fellow Rotarians. Most of you know Rob Northrup's humanitarian accomplishments. For instance, the World Health Organization credits the oral rehydration therapy that he perfected with saving the lives of 1.5 to 2.5 million, mostly children, every year. Wow. But Rob is also a fantastic musician. He sang with Yale's Whiffenproofs and directed reunions of their alumni groups. After retirement, he went back to college and got a formal music degree. He's led many ensembles, vocal and jazz. He and Quincy are avid concert goers. As a friend of Rob's, I'd been visiting him regularly in his nursing home until the shutdown. But just as the severity of the pandemic was becoming clear, Rob said to me that we should prepare something, a musical piece for the pandemic. He wanted a musical parody about COVID that might recognize the challenges, but also uplift people's spirits. Something fun, he said, something that would bring pleasure and comfort to people in these times. So despite the lockdown, he guided our efforts, adding lyrics and musical ideas. So this Rob Northrup ensemble that you're about to hear all sing with Rob in our Unitarian Church Choir. And they are here with us today as guests. Dr. Brent Williams did the video, Jim Breck tenor, Dick Barber, the baritone, and Dick Bauman at bass. I sing the melody line. Rob's wife, Quincy, without whom none of this would have happened, is also here today. Now, I must say, it's damn hard to sing barbershop when you can't even be in the same room together. So please forgive our COVID-19 compromises. But here it is, our heartfelt tribute to Rob Northrup, a great man, a great musician, our friend. We love him, and we hope you enjoy this.
Sarah, we can't hear anything.
Good.
Oh, coronavirus is so sad. We're stuck at home, not free. You better take good care of yourself. You are dear to me. And then why don't you read a book and watch TV and pour some more Chablis? You better take good care of yourself. You are dear to me. Be sure to wash your hands. Oh, yeah. Follow commands. Avoid your fans. Or you'll get the virus and pass it along. And wear a face mask when outside. And keep your face hands-free. You better take good care of yourself. You are dear to me. Oh, yes, we know that Dr. Fauci gives the word. And the CDC, you better follow their advice. You are dear to me. And then why don't you ask your favorite restaurant for home delivery? You better take good care of yourself. You are dear to me. Remember, don't shake hands. Oh, no, no. Follow commands. Avoid your fans. Or you'll get the virus and pass it along. And wait until vaccines arrive. And then we'll all be free. And then that COVID will go away. Herd immunity. One fine day vaccines will let us have that herd immunity. Immunity.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was wonderful. Thank you, Rob. Yep, hands up, hands clapping.
Clap, 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 clap.
Yep, thank you. Clap, clap, clap. Now mute your mic. Joanne gets to talk. Welcome. I'm Joanne Pearson, the president of this fine club. And if we were in our meeting place live, I would introduce you guests. And probably today we just have you all stand because we have so many on the call honoring Rob Northrup and John Drake. And we have new members, etc. So welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. And I hope you can join us again. As always, we begin, Don Duquette. That was just a wonderful, wonderful tribute today. Thank you for that. Then we thank our meeting coordinators. Our Lori Walters is on a well-deserved vacation. So we have John White, who worked with us earlier, but today we've got Lauren Heinonen, Sarah Maddock, and Ashok Natwa, making sure that we don't have any glitches. But if we do, we all know we punt, we roll, we do whatever we need to do. I don't know if Fred is on Beutler. I didn't see him, but he could be our photographer. Kathy Waugh is our reporter. Christina Ferris taking attendance, and Nishta Bhatia in her inaugural attendance taking effort. So thank you for stepping up, all of you, to make our meetings happen. Birthdays. We have a number of birthdays this week. On the 23rd, is that today? Yes. Rich Sheridan. Tomorrow, the 24th, Harrison Kennard. The 25th, Tom Cowper and Pete Eberbach. The 26th, Jin Chang, Beth Fitzsimmons, and Frank Newman, 3 of them on that day. And on the 29th, Deanna Aurelia. So happy birthday to you people. You can still get out and go out for a nice dinner outside. It's beautiful out there. So now we were going to have a presentation from the folks at the Children's Literacy Network, but I'm not sure if Betsy Durant is on the call.
I am here, yep.
Oh, good, Betsy. Wonderful. Thank you. I didn't see you.
That's all right.
So the Children's Literacy Network is the recipient of one of our community allocations grants, as well as a district grant. So here we are leveraging our money to do some good work right here in Ann Arbor. And Betsy is the executive director of the Children's Literacy Network. And so I will let you take it from here, Betsy.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, everyone, for allowing me to be here and speak with you today. I want to begin by thanking you for funding our Book Pals program and for the district Rotary grant as well. We are so excited to be partnering with you on this Book Pals effort. And I just want to start briefly by saying that the Children's Literacy Network's mission is to design and implement literacy-based programs to provide equitable opportunities for children to develop a love of reading and books. We are a volunteer-based nonprofit organization, and actually we have been around for 30 years. This is our 30th year anniversary. Woohoo! We are very excited about that coming up here. And I'm going to jump right into talking a little bit about Book Pals, and then I'm going to turn it over to LaToya Elliott, who is my program operations coordinator for Book Pals, and she's just going to tell you about how it's going to run virtually, as well as talk about volunteers. So Book Pals basically was based on the idea of the old pen pals, and I'm sure some of you remember pen pals. Some of you might have even had a pen pal yourselves. And the idea with pen pals is that for children who thought of writing as a chore, the idea was that if they had this pal who lived in a different community, who lived maybe in a different state or even a different country, they would be motivated to write to them without thinking of it as a task. And Book Pals is virtually the exact same, except it's with books. And it is focused on children's reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills. We are trying to raise children's reading proficiency, while at the same time, we are connecting children across communities who come from vastly different backgrounds. And we're connecting them through this shared love of reading. The PALS part, P-A-L-S, of the ending there of Book Pals stands for Peer Assisted Learning Strategies. And what that basically means in very basic terms, it just means that you have a reading buddy and you're trying to do this practice reading, which improves your reading proficiency scores, but you're doing the practice reading because you want to get better at what you're gonna read for your pal. And in doing that, children also get to answer questions about themselves with each other. They get to discuss books in book clubs with each other. And again, they form this friendship around a shared love of books. So having said all that, I am going to turn it over to LaToya Elliott, and she can talk to you about the virtual process and volunteers.
Thank you, Betsy. Thank you to the Rotary for having us today. So our virtual version of Book Pals came about just due to COVID and where we are now, not being able to be in the schools and work with the kids one-on-one. So this year, what we're looking to do is Book Pals will run on a monthly basis on a 4-week time scale. The first week, we will have the kids read books on their reading level at home or in their virtual ELA blocks with their parents or either with their teachers. And so they'll be practice reading alone during that time. The second week, we really need volunteers to come on and train as reading mentors. And they will be working with small reading groups with 4 to 5 children on practice reading, the comprehension questions that Betsy talked about, just making sure that their skill set is being improved and that they are understanding the literature that they are reading. That third week of virtual Book Pals, we'll pull together reading groups from different schools or different areas to form a larger book club session. So you have 2 reading groups together with a couple of reading mentors, and those reading mentors are facilitating discussion around the books. The kids are able to read the passages that they've been working on, even talk about their favorite characters. And then this is a time that Betsy hinted to, this is a time also that they will be learning about one another and connecting and talking to one another and building that bridge for that relationship. And then our 4th week of Book Pals, we have a couple of options that we're proposing. We do common books for all of the kids about 2 to 3 times in the program year. A common book is just the book that everyone in the program receives. If we have a common book for that particular month, then we'll pull those 2 reading groups back together to form another book club session that will be centered primarily and on that common book. So our reading mentors would then discuss that book. If we don't have a reading common book at that time, the kids will be working on a writing project on their own that they would bring back to the group at a later time. And so as you can see, we really need some volunteers for this program. And it's a delightful program working with the kids, getting to see them at least 2 to 3 times in a month. And they're building not only relationships with, of course, their partner pals, but they'll also be building those relationships with their reading mentor volunteers. So I'm hoping that the Rotary would love to get involved and give us some volunteers for this great program. Thank you.
Thank you, LaToya, and thank you, Betsy. And Janet Torno, Rotarians, is assisting with this project. So you can also reach out to Janet, and of course, excuse me, you can find everything you need at the tip of your fingertips with our harpoon. And if any of you are a little, wondering about the virtual with kids, you can talk to me because I do it 4 days out of the week right now, all day long, and you can make it work. So this is great. These kids, and reading builds vocabulary and teaches them lyric forms of language, etc. So this is a really, really great project. Thank you, ladies, for being here. So I've just got a couple announcements, and then we're going to get to roll into our program. Oh, ignore that timer. Let me get to my, you seeing this? Thank you, Don. I got a thumbs up from Don. Okay, Tom Millard was on earlier, but for some of you who didn't log on, didn't hear this, the Waste Warriors, I was kind of hoping it was going to be WAIST, but not so. But I think you'll still work your waste. Probably y'all don't need to while you're out there picking up trash at our Adopt a Highway on I-94. So Tom Millard, who is heading up this project for us, got it going. We are full with 18 volunteers, so that is fantastic. You'll all be meeting at 9 a.m. this Saturday at the Kensington Hotel on State Street. I'm going to be showing up with donuts before I go work with those kids I work with. And here's the important part, volunteers, please confirm the receipt of the email because there's some stuff you need to do. Okay, that's my most important point for you, so I'll repeat it. Confirm the receipt of that email so Mr. Millard is in the know that you are in the know with safety features, etc. So that's it, and thank you all for doing this. It's going to be some nice PR for us out on the highway, and you'll have it looking spiffy. Hopefully it'll be a beautiful day Saturday, and you won't have to go with the rain date. All right, now also, I'm just going to put a shout out for Ms. Kathy Waugh, who is our auction chair. I'm calling this the Golf Tennis Outing Re-Envision Part 2. You remember we had Part 1 with our Paisano night. We are working to raise funds for the good work we do, helping children succeed, helping kids succeed here in the community. And the second part of our non-golf and tennis outing is going to be this auction, and we need items. So you can go to the Harpoon, and get all the details. You can fill out the form for whatever you want to donate. And then there's also a new thing that's going to be up there, some baskets, and you can volunteer to do part of a basket. You don't have to do the whole basket. So that'll be up there for you as well. So note to self, auction item donation so we can continue to do our good work. All right, got those two little notes? Well, only the warriors need to worry about the first note. And now here is an important thing. So Zoom has changed their way of being effective next week, so we think. So you're going to have to pay attention to your Zoom invite next week because more than likely you are going to have to complete an additional step of putting in a password besides clicking on, okay? And you're like, oh, I just got this down. It's okay. Last line, will help. Our meeting coordinators are fantastic. We will help, and you also know that we'll be very explicit in that email about what you do. So that's your other thing. Don't freak out next week when you click on the Zoom thing and you're not right there. Of course, Zoom could change their mind, but, and with that, I will stop sharing. And it is just such a joy for today's program to be able to be here with you all. Obviously, with all of our guests who've come on from East Jordan, Jackson, the Philippines, and elsewhere, Rob Northrup means a lot to so many people. And so today is our Rob Northrup Humanitarian Award program. And to get things started there, I will turn this over to Marcia Lane. Marcia, you're muted, dear.
Good afternoon, everyone. In 2018, the Rotary Club of Ann Arbor created an award to be given annually in celebration of the exceptional humanitarian service provided by our own member, Robert S. Northrup. Don mentioned just one part of the work that continues to have an enormous effect on the lives of people all over the world. For me, as executive director of the Haiti Nursing Foundation for 10 years, Rob was a board member for many of those years. And Rob was the kind of board member everybody wants. So I have a special spot in my heart for Rob Northrup. Funding for this award was secured by an endowed donation from members of the club. The recipient of the award may or may not be a member of Rotary. The nomination can be made by any member of the Rotary Club of Ann Arbor, other area regional Rotary Club members, or a person from the community at large. The Peace Committee calls for nominations in December, and then forms a committee that this year included Lauren Hayden, Ashish Sarkar, Chuck Warpahosky, and myself. And I want to thank those 3 other members for the time and care that they took in considering the 5 nominations that we had. We had 5 excellent nominees. Chuck Warpahosky, some of you may remember, was a city councilman and executive director of the Interfaith Council for Peace and Justice for many years. The individual receiving this award must have made a long-term sustainable contribution to humanitarian efforts. They can be local, national, or international arenas. The service provided should be a personal, not administrative contribution to humanitarian causes. I'm so pleased to be able to introduce now Jim Cook, who nominated this year's recipient, John Drake, and Jim will introduce John. Thank you.
Unmute Jim, please. No, you're muted. Still muted. Your little red mic is on.
Should tell him to look in the lower left
There you
corner.
go. Talk
No,
now.
I think I just did it.
You did.
So you can now hear me?
Yes.
So let me say good afternoon to all the Rotarians and guests that are on the line. For the new members that don't know me, I'm Jim Cook, and back in the dark ages, I had President Joanne's job. Today, my job is to introduce this year's winner of the Rotary Club of Ann Arbor's Rob Northrup Humanitarian of the Year Award. The winner is a friend of mine, a colleague from work, and the most dedicated humanitarian I have had the pleasure of knowing personally. Those of you who have been members for a while will remember that this club has done not 1, but 2 international humanitarian projects with today's recipient, and he has been a featured speaker as well. If any of you have not seen this week's harpoon, this year's winner is John Drake from Jackson. So let me tell you about John's history. He originally went to the Philippines to help with the personnel integration issues of 2 small power plants that CMS Generation had purchased. He was appalled by the poverty and the abuse of the street children. As he readied to come back to Michigan after his last assignment, the mayor of Toledo City, where the CMS plants were located, approached John to help her replace the local orphanage, a former pig slaughterhouse. John agreed, and with some local PR, started raising money and built himself an orphanage. He also did all right at CMS Energy, rising to be a senior VP and a confidant of the new CEO. But his heart was in the Philippines. He took early retirement as soon as his pension was vested and has devoted all his energies since then to working for his kids. We in the Rotary Club of Ann Arbor helped John furnish his orphanage and then did a second project where he created a school to educate his kids. He also shamed the local church to shame their policy and let the kids attend Mass. Ann Glendon and I went to the dedication of the orphanage with John and other Rotarians, particularly those from Jackson. We met the kids and know firsthand why John loves them. John not only loves his kids, but he keeps on giving. He finds them jobs and funds college scholarships for those who qualify. He travels to the Philippines several times a year, always on his own money, to recruit staff, check on the operations, and visit with his kids. But John has been busy on this side of the Pacific as well. A tireless fundraiser, John is close to having an endowment large enough to fund his orphanage on an ongoing basis. He has used his contacts to build a strong board and has provided for the future by naming his successor, thereby avoiding the fate of so many doers of good works. Now it is my very great pleasure to welcome the winner of the club's Rob Northrup Humanitarian of the Year Award, John F. Drake.
Thank you, Jim, very, very much. I really appreciate it. And after having met Rob Northrup, frankly, I feel a little bit intimidated by this. This is really a big honor for me, and I just want to thank you all so much. Ashish Sarkar was giving me some suggestions about some things that I might say that you might be interested in, but I thought probably the best way, rather than just telling you the story, is maybe to show you the story and show you what motivated me to do what I've tried to do. Just a little background about myself. I grew up in Hillsdale, Michigan, not far from Ann Arbor. Graduated from Reading High School. Went off to Michigan State University, majoring in journalism. Found out quickly that that wasn't a good route for me, and wound up in the Navy for 4 years. After I got out of the Navy, I went back to Hillsdale College, where I graduated with a degree in Management Development Psychology, and went to work for Consumers Energy, or back then it was Consumers Power Company, and CMS Energy. That's where I met Jim Cook and Ashish for the first time. As Jim said, I went to the Philippines. I used to travel around quite a bit to all the countries where we were doing business. And one day I found myself in the Philippines. And so again, as I said, I think it's easier to show you what I'm talking about. And so, can everyone see this slide? Can everyone see that?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, all right. For those of you who've ever been to the Philippines, it's really a beautiful country. It's very easygoing, but the cities are very crowded, very noisy, and very polluted. It is a land of incredible beauty. This picture doesn't come even close to showing what I wanted it to show, but the sunsets are just absolutely beautiful. There's a lot of quiet places, but it's also a land of very stark contrasts. I don't know if you could see this picture very well, but in the background is the Shangri-La Mactan Hotel. And that's a 5-star luxury resort hotel, which is probably one of the most exclusive hotels in the world. And there was a concrete wall around it. And one day I got curious and wondered what was on the other side of the wall. And what I found was a squatter village. And in the lower left-hand corner of the photo, you can see a lady who's filling water cans because there was no running water and there was no electricity in this little squatter village, right directly in the shadows of one of the most beautiful places in the world. And this is one of the squatter villages. The poverty is almost overwhelming to consider. And the hardships the people have to endure is incredible, but they're a resilient people. I just love this motorcycle picture because there's 6 people on that. The most I've ever seen on one is 7. But I do have a photo of one where the individual in the back has got 2 little kids in a bucket. So there's actually 9 on the motorcycle. This photo I took very late at night. This young man was sleeping on the street, and there were trucks, buses, jeepneys missing his feet by only inches. And I got kind of upset, and I'm looking at these people literally stepping over him, and I'm thinking, you know, good heavens, don't you people see this little kid? Why doesn't somebody do something? But that's the way it is. I pulled this kid out of the street, but later on I found another one just like him, and I have to tell you that I walked on by too, because that's the way it is. There's so much of it. The despair. This lady and her little girl are sleeping on this overpass. It's incredibly hot, and they were up there every day begging for money or food. I had heard about an incident that took place in the municipal landfill in Manila. And so I couldn't believe what I had heard. And what it was that there had been a garbage slide, and they estimated that between 800 and 1,000 children were buried alive. Then they never found many of them. So I didn't believe it. So I went out there and took a look for myself. They call it also Smoky Mountain, and you could see in the background it's very smoky because that's all of the garbage fermenting in the heat. And what they do, garbage trucks come in there every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Kids will jump on the top of these trucks and start going through the garbage to find whatever they can find, to scavenge food, metal, anything at all. And they throw it down to the people on the bottom who've got these baskets where they gather it all up. And as I stood here in this dump where the smell was incredible, I thought, my gosh, I'm standing in Dante's Inferno. And in the distance, there was a church. And it's like, there's the promise of God from Dante's Inferno, and you just can't get there from here. How can this be? Here was a young man I found, he's walking barefoot in the dump. But what they would do is they burrow into those piles of garbage. And that's what happened when the garbage slide took place. The smell was beyond your wildest imagination. This is the home of one of the kids from the Lingap Center, Roger, his mother, brother, and younger sister. But this picture here is one that Judy doesn't even like to have me use. The fellow in the background in the red shirt on the left is a pimp. And he came up to me, this was late at night, and let's just say he offered these children for anything that I might have in mind. And I asked how young I could get, and the answer was 4, a 4-year-old. You never give street children money, because if you do, the pimps will take it. And you have to be very careful, because if the kids don't give the money to the pimp, they might kill them or hurt them or something. And so what I always do if I'm wandering around is, and I see these kids, I'll take them into McDonald's and I'll buy them a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry. And that's what happened in this picture. These are 2 street beggars. They were filthy. And I took them into McDonald's. The security guard wasn't going to let me, but I took them in anyway. And I got them a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry. And if you look at the smiles on their face, my thought was when I looked at that is, my gosh, if a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry will make them this happy, can you imagine how happy they would be if they had an education, if they had hope, or even a chance, or even just to sleep in a place of safety and security? Well, as Jim said, in 2002, we decided to sell our international plants. And this was my very last trip to the Philippines. I was never coming back again. And the mayor of Toledo City knew about my interest in kids. So the company gave the school system 16 computers as a thank you gift for letting us do business there. And she asked if I would go with her to all of the schools where these computers were going to be used. And I didn't want to, I had some time, so I said, sure. So as we're riding along in the car, she turns to me and she says, now you're the orphan guy, aren't you? And I thought, good heavens, why would you ask me if I'm an orphan guy? And she told me she knew about my interest in the children, and said they had a facility in town, and she asked if I would be willing to renovate it and run it for them. I didn't want to say no right off the bat, so I said, well, why don't you show me what we're talking about? So she took me to this building, which was, as Jim said, a converted pig slaughterhouse. It was disgusting. There was an open sewer right by the main entrance, which was the kitchen. The day that I was there, there were 26 children there. They had as many as 55. And this water, you can see over on the lower left corner how the concrete is all broken up. And this water trough is where the kids wash their clothes, they brush their teeth, they cook their food, they wash their dishes, they do everything in that water trough. And that's what they're doing here. And this is where they cooked. That's the kitchen. Well, one thing that you never do, or that typically people do, is when street beggars or something will come up and tap on the window of the car and they beg for food, what we try to do is not make eye contact. And I guess subconsciously we think that if we don't make eye contact, they won't see us, we won't see them, and the situation really doesn't exist. And so that's what I always kind of tried to do, is just don't make eye contact. But I made a big mistake when I went to the Ling-Up Center. I was there for a couple of hours with the mayor, and I actually made eye contact with the kids. And they weren't just street beggars. There was Eileen, there was Marmy, there was Margie, there was Alicio, there was Mark J. And that moment, I think, ruined me for life. But I still didn't want to build an orphanage. So I thanked the mayor and I came home. But what happened was I would come home and and it was Mother Teresa who said, God speaks in the silence of the heart. And we listen. And this went on for about a year. I would wake up in the night and I would be crying, and Judy would say, what's the matter? And I would be remembering those kids with those young lives and, you know, no hope and no future and no place to go. And I just couldn't handle it. So I went back to the Philippines to prove that it couldn't be done. And when I was there, really all the obstacles seemed to be overcome. And I came home and told Judy that we were going to build an orphanage in the Philippines. So we started in 2004. I had some blueprints drawn up. And what I tried to do was include the kids as much as possible. So here I am at the old pig slaughterhouse, and the kids were all gathered around trying to see what the new building would look like. And this is the point at which the Ann Arbor Rotary Club stepped in. The new building opened in 2006, and you folks provided all of the furnishings for the new building. And for that, I want to say thank you. Thank you very, very much. Another project that happened later on was we did put in a community library. This was in 2009. And what I was able to do was pull together 3 Philippine Rotary clubs, 9 US Rotary clubs, including East Jordan. Thanks, Paul Michael. Jackson, thank you, Cindy Conant. And also, we were able to include Rotary International. And the library is still in use at the West Bay Learning Center. Then several members of the Ann Arbor Rotary Club went with us for the grand opening. That's Jim Cook on the left with some of our kids, and Ann Glendon on the right was there. So what's it life like at the Ling-Up Center? And I call it an oasis, an oasis of hope and security. And this is the building that we built. We have a full basketball court. This is the interior. And on the right-hand side, that's the boys' wing, and on the left side is the girls' wing. And as you can see, it's an atrium because we couldn't afford air conditioning, and by building the building so that there was a constant airflow, it cooled things down quite a bit. It's really a cool building. This is the dining room. Oops, this is our clinic. We have a registered nurse on staff. This is the Payag, and that's just a little nipa hut. And as you can see, the grounds, I try to keep it like a park-like setting so the kids have places to go and they can go out in the Payag if they're having a bad day. Our house parents or our social workers can go out there and talk them down. It's just really a wonderful, quiet, peaceful place in a very noisy environment. But this is what kids are supposed to look like in my mind, rather than begging on the streets. And if I could move my cursor, there we go. Okay. And kids are kids everywhere. They're all the same. The kids take care of each other in so many different ways. Everybody does their own laundry and they do it by hand. And you know, a lot of people have said, oh, how awful that children would have to grow up in an institution. But my answer is, you know, living with 100 of your very best friends sometimes can be pretty good. And they're always there for each other. Every night before dinner, they pray the rosary on their knees on a very hard tile floor. And I like to say that we take care of their minds, their body, and their soul. We also started what I call a third Saturday outreach program, which is a children's mass, church mass that takes place on the third Saturday of every month. In January, what we do is we invite all of the kids, the less fortunate children in the community, to come in for this, and we feed them all. And in January of 2011, we had over 5,000 children in attendance, and we fed them all. It was an unbelievable day, unbelievable. In November of 2013, you may remember Typhoon Yolanda, which was the worst typhoon in recorded history. Winds came ashore on the island of Cebu and Leyte, sustained winds of 220 miles an hour. I happened to be there the next day I got there, and the children were pretty upset about what had happened. It missed us just barely, but the kids got busy and put together 1,200 relief packages, which was a little bit of rice. The boys baked bread, some water bottles. We put it all in a truck. We carried them up into the typhoon areas to give them out. And when we were on their way up, we saw these signs. They needed food and water. Remember, it's incredibly hot over there. They had no water or nothing. And the people who had nothing, they lost everything they had except for hope. We were worried that the people might stampede the trucks, so they lined up very orderly. The kids handed them out when they came in, and the gratitude from the recipients was unbelievable. The gratitude isn't just a word, it was everything. Someone actually cared. The relief packages we provided were very, very small, but at least someone cared. And the children learned that helping others is the greatest gift that you can give to yourself. I'm always telling them that. Last year, we built a new building to expand our facility. The facility is capable of handling 100 children. And so with this, we can handle 132. And we also added a library. This is the old building on the right and our new building on the left. And to show you our campus, this is our campus outlined in blue. And the one in the center with the slot in the middle, that's the old Lingup Center that you folks helped us to furnish. This is just another view from above. In our new library, we put in a computer lab, which is heavily used. Our choir is incredible. And the choir is exceptionally good. In 2016, they were part of the choir that sang at the International Eucharistic Congress that was held in Cebu City. It was the first year ever that the Pope was not able to make it. But our kids were in the front row. And if you stop and think about that, the outcasts in that community are now the ambassadors for goodwill to the world. Best part of the day, however, for me is to see the kids going off to school. So here's Jillian and Angelito. He's quite a kid. They get into our vehicle. It holds them all. Everybody wears uniforms. And then every year we have what we call Honor Society, which was a celebration of academic success. That's me and Jojen, who is on this call right now, the Lingup manager. And the kids are very proud of their achievements. We have a string ensemble that performed. The kids made their own costumes, and the work that they do is unbelievable. This is our choir. They performed. They get asked to sing at community events all over the place. And learning continues even after school. We have a commercial cooking class. So we're teaching them baking. And the stuff that they make, I can tell you firsthand, it's unbelievably good. Look at my stomach and you'll see what I mean. And again, helping others is the greatest gift that you can give to yourself. This is some of the produce from our garden. Okay, and the kids, and where are they today? These are the twins. When we first, on the left, the little girl, there were a set of identical twins in this horribly filthy nipa hut. And the doctors, when we took them to the hospital, the doctors gave them less than 3 days to live. They had everything you could possibly imagine. We took them in, and you can see them on the right. They're currently about 10 years old, and they're both academic achievers. And they're only alive today. The only reason they're alive today is because of Lingup Center and people like you. This is our dining room wall. We put all the photos of our college graduates up there, and it's a goal for all of our kids. We're currently at 32 college graduates and counting. Okay, you remember this picture from earlier at the old pig slaughterhouse? That's Margie Ladamo. This is Margie Ladamo now. She got her bachelor's degree in culinary arts, and she's currently a chef aboard Norwegian Cruise Lines. That was before COVID happened. This is Marmi Pantilag, and she is currently a housekeeping supervisor aboard Norwegian Cruise Lines. The one deal that I made with both Marmi and Margie is that if I helped them to get a job with Norwegian Cruise Lines, they had to promise to send me postcards from every port they visited. And here they are. This is Mark J. Tabo, who got a bachelor's degree in marine engineering and got a job as the 4th engineering officer aboard the Maersk lines. This is Roxanne Barron, who got a bachelor's degree in accounting. And that's her. She was pretty proud of herself. She's a great kid. Eileen Bantulinao at the old Lingup Center and on the right. This is her younger brother, John Ryan. This picture was taken in 2004 at the old Lingup Center. This is Ryan today. He's got a bachelor's degree, he's a registered nurse, and he was accepted into 2 different medical schools. He went to the University of St. LaSalle on a full scholarship. And LaSalle is an Ivy League school in the Philippines. This is Rona Eladora, who has a master's degree in horticulture, a senior high school agriculture teacher. Elvira Villahermosa, a bachelor's in hotel restaurant management. And this is Vincent, June Vincent, got a bachelor's degree in automotive technology, and he's currently a warranty assistant with Isuzu. This is Vincent, and that's my back. And what happened here was homecoming, or honor society is a combination of honor society and homecoming. And a lot of our kids come home to the center. And Vincent came home, and he came up to me after the honor society, and he had tears running down his cheeks, and he hugged me really big. And then he backed off and he shook his head and he hugged me really big again. And he did it 4 times. And finally I said, Vincent, I've got it. We're good. And he says, but Tito John, don't you realize that without you, we're all nothing? That really took me. And I think he was really talking about with all of you, we're nothing. So thank you again for your help. This is Judy on the left. This is my wife. And none of this would have been possible without her support. She's been with me every step of the way on this project. And this is our current group of kids. We've had over 600 kids so far who've gone through the Lingup Center. And they're all great kids. The yellow ones are staff, and that's me in the middle. And the pink are the kids. And this is Angel. And I consider her to be our official spokesperson. She doesn't need to say a thing. Her smile says it all. Thank you for helping. None of this would have been possible without you. If you'd like more information about the Lingup project, that's our website address. And does anyone have any questions?
Don, I can hardly speak. Before I open it to questions, I'm going to turn it back to Marcia Lane. You are remarkable. Marcia?
John, I just want to formally present you with the 2019 Robert S. Northrup Humanitarian Award for your extraordinary vision and generosity in founding and growing the Lingup Center Orphanage and Children's Foundation, which enhance the lives of countless people in the Philippines. And here is, I don't know if you can see it. It looks
I can see it
backwards on the screen, but
I
we
can see.
send this to you And I am so humbled and so pleased and proud to be able to present this to you.
Well, I just want to say thank you all so much. As I said right at the beginning, I'm humbled and honored, especially after hearing about Rob Northrup. To be put in that league is amazing. So thank you all very, very much. Thank you.
So, okay, so first of all, Sarah Maddock wrote, is there a dry eye in the house? And clearly, if I'm to speak for everyone, the answer is no. That was amazing work. And now Rob Schiff. Okay, people, I'm sorry, John. I'm losing my questions, but how has COVID-19 affected the center? That was one of Rob's questions.
It's been really rough. The COVID situation has been very harshly imposed in the Philippines, much more so than it was here in the US. So what we've had to do is the staff has been going to a week on, week off shift. They're leaving their families and they're going to the Lingap Center for a week and then going home for a week. We have also, the schools are supposed to be opening on October 5th. But we've made the decision that we are not going to send our kids to school at all this year. And so I've hired 4 teachers part-time. They're very qualified teachers. They're excellent teachers. And they're coming into the center and they're teaching the classes. We've gotten all of the teaching modules from the schools. And so we're doing our own teaching. And the house parents and social workers are filling in where the teachers haven't. It's been rough on the staff, but the kids are, what I like to say is the kids are healthy, happy, and frustrated. And the staff, I would say, are healthy and worried.
Yeah, that makes sense. So can you just talk, we just got a few minutes, but how do you find the children, or how are the children enrolled?
The children come to us from a whole bunch of different ways. They're referred to us by the barangay captains. The police will bring them in. Neighbors will call us and say that there's a problem. The kids that we cater to are abandoned, abused, neglected, exploited kids. So we don't take them all. It all depends on the situation. We have 5 social workers, and if we get a child referred to us, the social workers will go out and do an intake study and review. We are accredited by the Department of Social Welfare and Development. And you might also be interested to know we are one of the top 5 rated institutions of our kind in the entire country.
That's fantastic. And is there a minimum age, and do any of the children get adopted?
We don't do adoptions at all for mostly political reasons. There's a lot of corruption that goes on in that situation. So we do not do any adoptions. And the minimum age, I believe, is about 7, but don't tell anybody. Just keep it quiet. We have some that are as young as 4.
And then another question, how do you help the children deal with their trauma, since many of them obviously are, living on the streets? And
amazingly, the kids are very well, they handle it very well. We have 5 social workers. We have a counselor on staff. And if we have a situation that exceeds our ability to deal with them, we do take them for professional counseling in Cebu City from time to time. But I showed you a photo of the Payag, which is that very peaceful little center. And sometime if a child is having a bad day, we could take them out there and just talk them down. But they're remarkably, Jim Cook will tell you, if you meet the kids, you would never know the trauma that they've gone through.
Thank you. You are a remarkable man. Thank you.
Well,
and
thank you.
I'm going to close our meeting. I don't know if you can hang out for a little bit, because some people probably have some
Sure.
more questions, but others have to get to work.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much, and I will be here afterwards.
We need more people like you, John. It was, really, really amazing. So I mentioned earlier, we have folks here from East Jordan. Rotary Club Jackson, Philippines, and also our own Kofi Gian from Ghana. We have people on the call from Kumasi Rotary Club. So I want to welcome all of you. Next week, we're going to be celebrating more good work. We're going to be celebrating the 104th anniversary of the Rotary Club of Ann Arbor. And I hope I have as many people on this call next week. If you missed the July 1 presidential Jeopardy, when I had to, really work to finally be in this position, we are going to be doing Director Jeopardy next week with our directors because they haven't had any time to go to the podium. So I hope you'll join us. It'll be enlightening and it will be lightening. Lighten your loads. Rob Northrup, I hope you're still on. I can't see all the people. Quincy, John Drake, thank you for your good, great work, really. And my quote for today, with you all in mind, everyone on this call, comes from Anatole France, who was the winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1921. It is by acts and not by ideas that people live, and people of action. There we are. Thank you all. Have a wonderful week. All righty.
You're muted, Joanne.
Was I muted the whole time?
No. You after the bell ringing only.
Yes, ever since this morning.
Yolanda, that was cruel.
July 1.
Just kidding.
The list of people who attended the meeting, will that stay somewhere or is it going to disappear when you leave, when you close the meeting?
Lauren Heinonen, do you know that? Or that? I think Fred usually takes a picture of that chat, but does that stay on?
That's like,
yeah, I get a copy of the chat, Nishta, I can send it to you.
okay, because I am looking through the chat and I think I have everybody, but at the same time, and what do you do with the guests?
You just write their names at the bottom.
If I got them all, right? They're not.
Thankfully, there were 2 other people taking attendance today too.
Okay, good.
I do have the attendance pictures, and the attendance was unusually large.
Right.
I want to say one more thing. Jim was very modest with this, but he played a real role with respect to the Lingap Orphan Center. And I have some older pictures that were part of a PowerPoint that we played. I think it was in 2007, and I still have those. So I have independent pictures of the Lingap Center. But I do want to point out that Jim Cook was